I am Mahari Baye. I am a physics teacher and this is grade 10 lesson about projectile motion. It is the first part of projectile motion. Let us first define projectile motion. Projectile is any object thrown into space by the exertion of a force which ceases after launch, or projectile is any object moving through the air without an engine or other motive force, or projectile is any object that is given an initial velocity and then follows a path determined by the effect of gravity. This indicates that, or we can summarize this, that projectile is any object thrown into space by the exertion of a force, and the only force which acts on the object after it is launched is gravity. If there is no other force which affects the motion of the projectile other than gravity. Examples of projectiles include a cannonball shot from a cannon, a stone thrown into the air, a ball rolling off the edge of a table, a bullet fired from a gun, a batted baseball, a thrown football, a package dropped from airplane. These all are projectiles because after once thrown, after once projected, there is no any other force other than gravity which affects the motion of these objects. Why are flying birds and moving airplanes are not projectiles? Note that birds are not projectiles. Flying birds, moving airplanes are not projectiles. Do you know why? A body can be considered as a projectile only if the force which is acting on it is gravity after it is launched. When we take birds, they can use the chemical energy stored in their body from food. Moving airplanes use engines for their motion. As a result, they cannot be considered as a projectile. Projectile motion can be described as a superposition of the two motions in the x and y directions. Thus, a projectile motion is a two-dimensional motion. Two-dimensional motion is the movement of an object along two separate planes, that is, vertical and horizontal planes. So, projectile motion is a two-dimensional motion. The motion is along x-axis and y-axis. The velocity, acceleration, the positions can be described both in x and y directions. There are three assumptions of projectile motion. These are: 1. The first assumption is acceleration due to gravity is constant over the range of the motion and is directed downward. We will take the acceleration due to gravity constant, because if it is not constant, the equations of projectile motion will not be valid. The second assumption is the effect of air resistance is negligible. We ignore the effect of air resistance on the motion of the projectile. The third case is the rotation of the earth does not affect the motion. These are the three assumptions of projectile motion. Assuming this, we can describe projectile motion properly. The path followed by a projectile is called trajectory. It has parabolic shape if the effect of air resistance is ignored. The path is caused by the horizontal and vertical velocities. The projectile will have vertical velocity and also horizontal velocity. As a result, the projectile will have a parabolic trajectory. The horizontal motion of a projectile. We have seen that projectile motion is two-dimensional motion. Thus, it has horizontal motion and also vertical motion. Now is the time to discuss horizontal motion of a projectile. The horizontal motion of a projectile is uniform motion. You know what uniform motion means in grade 9. Uniform motion is motion with constant speed. Ignoring air resistance, no horizontal force acts on the projectile as it flies through the air. We have ignored the effect of air resistance. So, there is no horizontal force which acts on the projectile. If the horizontal net force is 0, what will come? The motion is uniform motion. Because net force is 0 means acceleration is 0. Acceleration is 0 means the motion is uniform. This means that it has no acceleration and therefore moves at constant velocity. The air resistance is ignored. The net horizontal force is zero, meaning there is no acceleration. If there is no acceleration, the object moves at constant velocity. If the object is moving at constant velocity in the horizontal direction, the motion is uniform motion. The average velocity of a projectile in the horizontal direction is given by average velocity is total displacement over total time taken. Symbolically, V average is equal to x over time. X is the distance in the horizontal direction. From this implies that x is the product of average velocity and time, or ux times t or vx times t. Why? Because the average velocity and the instantaneous velocities are equal. The initial velocity in the x direction and the final velocity in the x direction are equal. Why? Because acceleration is zero, because the motion is uniform. So average velocity, initial velocity in the x direction and initial velocity, final velocity in the x direction are equal. The range of the projectile then becomes range or the maximum horizontal displacement is equal to ux times t. Note that range is the maximum horizontal displacement or the horizontal distance between the release and landing points. So if you are using the maximum horizontal displacement, it is ux times t. T is capital so as to represent the total time of flight, because it is the distance between the release and landing points. When the projectile lands, it is no longer a projectile. A body is considered to be a projectile from the release point up to the landing point. Let us see an example of uniform motion. A car moves with a constant speed of 10 meters per second for 4 seconds. Calculate the speed and distance moved by the car after 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and 4 seconds. Note that it is moving with constant speed. So it is a uniform motion. The car moved 4 seconds. We are going to calculate the speed of the car in each second and also the distance covered by the car after 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and 4 seconds. Time in second 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The final and initial speed are equal because the speed is constant, 10 meters per second. So at 0 it is 10, at 1 10, at 2 10, at 3 10. Why? Because the speed is constant. If speed is constant, we know that distance is speed times time. It is 10 times t because the speed is 10. 10 times 0, 0. 10 times 1, 10. 10 times 2, 20. 10 times 3, 30. 10 times 4, 40. Therefore, at 0 second, the distance moved is 0 meter. After 1 second, it has moved 10 meter. 2 seconds, 20 meters. 3 seconds, 30 meter. 4 seconds, 40 meter. Look, equal distance is covered with an equal interval of time. The distance from 0 meter to 10 meter is 10 meter. The time gap is 1 second. Between 0 second and 1 second is 1 second. Within 1 second, it has moved 10 meter. The gap between 10 meter and 10 meter is 10 meter. And also the time difference between 1 second and 2 second is 1 second. Within 1 second, another 2 second, 1 second, it has moved 10 meter and so on. Equal distance is covered with an equal interval of time, and the motion is said to be uniform motion. Let us see the vertical motion of a projectile. We have seen the horizontal motion of a projectile, and we have said that it is uniform motion, equal distance is covered with an equal interval of time. When we see the vertical motion of a projectile, it is uniformly accelerated motion or free fall motion. The vertical velocity does change. This is because the projectile accelerates under gravity as it moves. There is acceleration of the projectile in the vertical direction because there is a net force which acts on the projectile in the vertical direction. That net force is acceleration due to gravitational force. Let us revise SUVAT equations or equations of motion with uniform acceleration. We have said that the vertical motion is uniform accelerated motion or freeform motion. The acceleration of the projectile in the vertical direction is acceleration due to gravity, which is 9.8 meters per second squared. Summary of SWOT equations. You have learned the derivation of SWOT equations in grade 9. So let us see the equations as it is. The first equation is VU plus AT. S is missed from the 5 SWOT quantities. U is here, V is here, AT are here. What is missed is S. The second equation is SVT minus 1 over 2 h squared. U is missed. We don't find U in this equation. The third SUT plus 1 over 2 h squared. V is the missed quantity. It is no V. V is missed in this equation. The fourth equation is SV plus U over 2 times T. Acceleration is missed in this equation. And the fifth one is V squared U squared plus 2S. T is missed. Note that in solving problems of uniformly accelerated motion, identifying the missed quantity can enable us to select and use the right formula easily. How? Let us see it by examples. Example 1. A car traveling at 8 meters per second and accelerates with uniform acceleration or constant acceleration at 2 meters per second squared for 6 seconds. Find its final velocity. Solution. The given quantities are the initial velocity 8 meters per second, the acceleration which is constant 2 meters per second squared, the time of motion 6 seconds. The required quantity is the final velocity V. U, A, T are given. V is the required quantity. What is missed from the 5 quantities is S. So S is a missed quantity. If S is missed, the formula we choose is V is equal to U plus AT. V is equal to U plus AT. Therefore, V is equal to U plus AT, which is U 8 meters per second, A 2 meters per second squared times 6 seconds. The result we obtain is 20 meters per second. So the velocity is 20 meters per second. The second example. A runner in a race is initially traveling at 5 meters per second and accelerates at 4 meters per second squared for 5 seconds. Find A, the distance he traveled, B, his final velocity. Let us see the solution. Given quantities are the initial velocity is 5 meters per second, acceleration, constant acceleration 4 meters per second squared, the time of motion is 5 seconds. Then the required quantity is S. From SWOT, S is the required, UAT are given, the missed quantity is V. So we need to choose the right formula in which V is missed. S U plus UT plus 1 over 2 h squared. It is a formula without V. So it is the right formula to find solution for this first problem. Therefore, S is equal to T plus 1 over 2 h squared. All quantities are given. We have substituted the values and the result we obtain is 75 meters. U is 5, T is 5 seconds plus 1 over 2 times 4 meters per second squared times 5 squared. The result we obtain is 75 meters. For B, the given quantities are the same as that of A because it is the same problem. U, A, T are given. The required quantity is the final velocity. So in this case, if U, A, T are given and V is the required quantity, one quantity is missed and that is S. The right formula is V is equal to U plus AT, a formula with no S. Therefore, V is equal to U plus AT means 5 meters per second plus 4 meters per second squared times 5 seconds. We will find the result 25 meters per second. This is the mechanism by which uniformly accelerated motion problems can be solved. This is an easy way. Please do not forget to write the given quantities and the required quantities and to identify the missed quantity. Identifying the missed quantity enables us to get the right formula easily. The following 5 sub-applications can be used to solve problems regarding the motion of free fall bodies, upward and downward throws. The analogous quantities of sub-applications for vertical motion are: for S, Y; for U, Ui; for V, Vy; for A, G; and for T, T, respectively. The quantity S in sub-applications can be replaced by either Y or H. It can be replaced or substituted by Y or H. Let us see the vertical motion or downward throw. In this case, initial velocity in the Y direction or Ui and acceleration to gravity have same direction. Acceleration to gravity is always downward. The object is thrown downward. So the initial velocity and acceleration with gravity have same directions. The formulas of sub-equations can be substituted by y, ui, vy, g, and t as follows: vy, ui plus gt. Y is missed. Y, vyt minus 1 over 2t squared, and so on. So vertical motion upward throw. When you see the upward throw, ui and g have opposite directions. The formula for upward throw is vy ui minus gt. Do you know the reason why it is minus? Because in this case ui and g have opposite directions, so that acceleration due to gravity is taken to be negative. The missed quantities are shown here. We make the acceleration to be negative here. Negative of negative is positive. Negative g. There is no g here, but here it is negative. Let us see the sign convention. If u and g are in the same directions, take both of them as positive. In our case, in the downward motion of a projectile, u and g have same direction, and hence we have taken both u and g to be positive, and thus all the sub-equations, analogous quantities, are replaced without changing the signs of the quantities. Okay. Here in this case, or if u and g are in opposite directions, take one of them as positive and the other negative. In our case, we have taken ui positive. Look, ui is positive, ui is positive, ui positive, ui positive, and g negative. It is negative g, negative of negative, positive, negative g, negative g. So because in the upward direction, ui is in the upward direction, g is in the downward direction, they are opposite direction, and hence we have taken the value of ui to be positive and g negative. Let us do an example. For downward throw, vertical projection downward throw. A ball is thrown vertically downward with a velocity of 20 meters per second. Calculate the A, vertical velocity of the ball after 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and 4 seconds. B, vertical displacement of the ball after 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and 4 seconds. Here is the solution. The given quantities are ui 20 meters per second in the downward direction at t is equal to 0 second. G is 10 meters per second squared. So the value of G is 9.8. We approximate it to 10 meters per second squared to make it simple. The calculation is easy or simple. The required quantity for A is Vy. T is given. The missed quantity here is Ui is given, G is given, Vy and T are also given. So what's left is Y. If Y is missed for downward throw, the quantity we choose, the formula we choose is Vy ui plus gt. Look, y is missed in this equation. ui is 20, g is 10, so vy is 20 plus 10t. Look, vy t 0 second, it is 20 plus 10 times 0, it is 20. For 1 second, 20 plus 10 times 1, 10, which is, the sum is 30. For 2 second, 40 meters per second. For 3 second, 50 meters per second. For 4 second, 60 meters per second. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. The velocity increases at constant rate. It increases by 10 meters per second in each second. It indicates that the acceleration due to gravity is 10 meters per second squared. The second required quantity is y, or the vertical displacement. ui is given quantity, g is already known, time is given, y is the quantity to be calculated. So the missed quantity is vy. If vy is missed, the right formula we choose for downward is y is equal to uit plus 1 over 2gt squared. ui is 20, t is a variable. 1 over 2 times 10 is 5, 5t squared. Y at t is equal to 0 is 20 times 0, 0, plus 5 times 0 squared, 0, so it is 0. For 1 second, 20 times 1, 20, plus 5 times 1 squared is 1, so 20 plus 5 is 25, and so on. So y at t is equal to 0 second, 0, 1 second, 25, 2 seconds, 60, 3 seconds, 105, y at t 4 seconds, 160. Look, the distance increases at a variable rate. 0 to 25, the gap is 25 meters. 25 to 60, the gap is 35 meters. 60 to 105, the gap is 45 meters within 1 second. Do you know the reason why? Because the velocity is increasing with time. The above table can be illustrated by figure as follows. t0 second, the initial point h is taken to be 0, and the downward h is taken to be positive. h0, h25 after 1 second, 60 2 seconds, 105 after 3 seconds, and 160 after 4 seconds. vy 20 at 0 second, it increases by 10 and becomes 30 after 1 second, 40, 50, and 60 after 4 seconds, respectively. Let us do example for vertical projection or upward throw. A ball is thrown vertically upward with a velocity of 20 meters per second. Calculate a vertical velocity of the ball after 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and 4 seconds. B. Vertical displacement of the ball can rise after 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and 4 seconds. C. Maximum vertical displacement or H max, it can rise. D. Time of ascent, the time taken to reach to the maximum height. Here is the solution. The given quantities for all required problems are ui 20 meters per second, it is thrown vertically upward with 20 meters per second at t0, and acceleration to gravity is 10 meters per second squared. The required quantity for the first case is vy, final velocity, t is given, what is the missed is ui is given, g is given, vy and t, the 4 quantities are given, what's left is y. The right formula for upward throw is vy ui minus gt. Look, it is minus because ui and g have opposite direction. vy is thus, ui is 20 minus 10t. vy at t0 second, 20 minus 10 times 0, it is 0, so it is 20. After 1 second, 20 minus 10 times 1, 20 minus 10, which is 10. After 2 seconds, it is 0. After 3 seconds, minus 10. After 4 seconds, it is minus 20. Here, the negative values indicates that the projectile or the ball is moving downward. That is why the sign is negative. It indicates that the direction of velocity is changed. 0 indicates that the object has reached at the maximum height. It can no longer go up. For B, UI and G are given, Y is the required quantity, and T is also given. So Vy is the missed quantity. So Y is equal to UIT minus 1 over 2 squared. There is no Vy in this equation. Ui is 20 times T minus 1 over 2 times 10 is 5 T squared. T0, it is 0 because 20 times 0 is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. So 0 minus 0 is 0. 20 times 1 is 20 minus 5 times 1 squared is 5. 20 minus 5 is 15. Y T 2 second 20 meter. Substitute the value of the Y at 3 second 15 meter. Y after 4 second 0. Look, 0, 15 meter, 20 meter, 50 meter. Why is the value of the vertical displacement decreasing? The maximum height that can be attained by the ball is 20 meter. After that, the ball goes down. That is why its height decreases. And finally, after 4 seconds, it reaches back to the ground. That is why it is 0 meter. The third one is the maximum height. The maximum height. Note that at maximum height Vy is 0. Though this quantity is not given, it is already known by everybody of us that it is 0 at the maximum height. So Ui, G, H max and Ui are given, and P the total time is the missed quantity. The time is the missed quantity. Hence, the formula is Ui squared minus 2J, 2Gy, 0 squared, 20 squared minus 20 Y max, because it is 20, 2 times 10. Y max is 20 squared over 20, which is 20 meter. And time of ascent is for Vy 0, because it is at the maximum height that we say time of ascent. Y is the missed quantity, and hence Vy Ui minus GT is used for upward through, and hence 0 is equal to 20 minus 10 times time of ascent. When Vy becomes 0, T is changed into time of ascent, because time of ascent is the time taken by a projectile to reach to the maximum height. Solving this equation gives time of ascent 20 over 10, which is 2 seconds. The above table can be illustrated by figure as follows. This is the ground at which the ball is thrown. T0 second, Y is 0 meter. It is the initial point. Vy is 20 meters per second. It is the initial velocity of the projectile. After 1 second, it rises up a vertical displacement of 15 meters, and its velocity decreases to 10 meters per second. Why? Because when the object is moving up, the gravitational force decreases its velocity by 10 meters per second each second. After 1 second, it becomes 10 meters per second. And when T is 2 seconds, Y is 20 meters, and Vy is 0. Vy 0 means the object has reached at the maximum height. At the maximum height, the object can no longer go up because its kinetic energy is 0. As a result, it returns back down. At this 3 seconds, Y becomes 15 meters and Vy is negative 10. You know why it is negative 10? Because the object is moving down. The direction of V is reversed or changed. And after 4 seconds, Y is 0 meter. 0 meter indicates that it has returned back to where it has started. Vy is negative 20 meters. Look, we have thrown it with a velocity of 20 meters per second, and also the object returned back with a velocity of 20 meters per second. This is upward, this is downward. Thank you for listening. If you have questions or suggestions, you can write to me.